everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you're all having a good day. In today's episode, we are going out in search of another brand new mob that's been added in Minecraft 1.19, the Wild Update. But first of all, I want to show you a little bit of stuff I've been doing in between episodes on my live streams because I decided, now that we have mangrove wood and skulk blocks along with various other things, we've got mud and stuff like that, it was probably time to expand my storage system. Instead of shuffling all of my filters along to make room for mangrove wood right here, I've added another modular room to the storage system, and while it's not especially decorated yet, this is basically going to be 1.19 storage. We are going to have the skulk blocks and stuff in here, and probably the variants of them, like the skulk sensors, the catalysts and shriekers up in here, probably some skulk vein as well, since I've not farmed a great deal of that yet, and the regular skulk blocks are going to go in there in case you want to build with them or just pull them out for some handy XP. Over here on the other side, we've got mangrove wood, mangrove roots, and mud, and I'm leaving a little bit of room in here for a couple of other bits and pieces that we'll be gathering. We need to start talking about packed mud and mud bricks, but I think we'll get to those in an episode later this week. For now, have you ever heard the phrase, mad as a box of frogs? Well, today, that is aspirational, because we're heading out in search of frogs with a shulker box, and I'm hoping to get a bunch of frogs as tadpoles and bring them back with us so that we can grow them in other biomes. Because frogs' breeding mechanics are actually a little bit closer to turtles. Turtles will lay their eggs on the beach once you've bred two of them, and frogs do something kind of similar. They lay frog spawn, which hatches into tadpoles, and they remain as a tadpole for a little while before they grow up into a fully fledged frog. During that time, we can capture them in a bucket and take them to another biome where, if the conditions are right, they will grow up into 3 different colors of frog. First of all, we've got to find and breed some frogs though, which is going to require a quick trip to our slime farm. And yet, while it looks like this thing has been killing a lot of zombified piglins as well, we have a pretty decent amount of slime balls in here. And the first place we're going to go out looking for frogs is this swamp biome over here near our guardian farm, because frogs will spawn in either swamps or mangrove swamps. And I'm thinking the swamp here is going to be the best place to look for them simply because it's a little bit more open. We can kind of see all of the terrain around us. Whereas in mangrove swamps, even though I was there generating fresh new terrain, I didn't see any frogs at all while I was over there. And I don't think that's a problem with the spawning mechanics. I think that's more of a problem with the sight lines in mangrove swamps and the fact that they are made of dense foliage most of the time. But despite having cleared a bunch of passive mobs out of the biome, I'm having difficulty getting frogs to spawn here. I really think that's due to the proximity of the other biomes more than anything else, so I might go and try and find a larger swamp, one that doesn't have all of the birch forests and other stuff encroaching on the outside, and one where we can hopefully surround ourselves with swamp. Now this looks a bit more like it. There is swamp as far as the eye can see. If I look in this direction, there's obviously a couple of other biomes around the outside, but this is a swamp that is, like 4,000 or 5,000 blocks out, mostly because I found a witch hut here a while ago and thought, yeah, maybe we'll earmark this location for the future, just as I was heading around to a few other biomes in the area. But if we look down, we have what I'm looking for. Let's get a look at these with a spyglass close up before we go meet them in person. These are the frogs that we have been looking for, and these are the orange variant of frog specifically. The orange ones are ones that you will find in a regular swamp biome, and in mangrove swamps we should potentially find a white variant of frog. And so of the 3 different colors of frog there are in the game, 2 will spawn naturally, and a third we kind of have to do a little bit of breeding to acquire a third frog ourselves. Now let's see if we can breed these 2. They should be interested in the slime balls that I'm holding, and we get to look at them up close. What adorable little critters they are. I think the little neck pouch that they have really gives them a bit of personality, and the way they walk is just one of the most detailed walk animations of any mob in Minecraft. It's so cool. Alright, let's give these 2 some slime balls. They should breed in the way that animals normally do, but then they should find some water in order to lay some frog spawn, and that is where we need to act. It's going to take them a while though. Like turtles, they are not the fastest on land. They are much more graceful in the water, but it looks like this one has found its way to the water's edge, and in a second or 2, there we go. It should lay some frog spawn. The sounds are absolutely lovely as well. I'm going to try and capture those a couple of times on camera when I'm not talking, or boost them in the mix so you can hear a little bit more of the croaking sound they make. But they're also capable of really high jumps, and it's kind of similar to goats in that sense, where they can actually jump maybe like 7 or 8 blocks in the air. But eventually the frog spawn here should hatch into tadpoles. And there they go. They've just hatched into 2 tadpoles. Now, there should be between 2 and 5 or 2 and 6 tadpoles, I think. And we can get those in a bucket, which also gets us an advancement for catching a tadpole in a bucket. How lovely. They look so cute in the sprite as well. That's very, very sweet. And depending on where they eventually swim off to, they can be a little hard to spot. This one seems to have gone downstream a little bit. So let's see if we can grab this one from out of the swamp water. Yes, there we go. And now we have 2 tadpoles, which we can take to other biomes and hatch elsewhere. So having looked around a little, I have been able to find a larger group of frogs, and so I'm thinking we can start a little frog breeding colony over here by this section of swamp water. We should hopefully be able to grab them all just by holding some slime balls under their noses, and maybe these 2 can be a breeding pair, and these 2 can be a breeding pair. I basically want to fill up a shulker box full of them so we can grab a bunch of frogs from all of the different biomes. And there's a couple more frogs underneath here, so let's feed you, and there's the other one, feed you. It seems like if they're close to water when they breed, they actually produce frog spawn pretty much right away. Yeah, there we go. It just happens right in front of your eyes. So it's more likely, I think, that if we want to breed these like close to our home, if we want to bring a couple of frogs back with us, then leaving them around a large area of water like this is probably a good idea, because you want to keep track of where the frog spawn has been laid. Unfortunately, you can't move that around. Even if I wanted to obtain this with Silk Touch, it's currently unobtainable in survival. So you might be wondering why we're going to all of this trouble to obtain all different variants of frogs. I mean, sure, they look kind of nice, but what exactly do they do? Well, we kind of get a clue to that by looking at the advancements tab here. Under husbandry, where we get the achievement for catching a tadpole in a bucket, there is another one for getting each frog variant on a lead, and then the final advancement in this branch hints at a block called Froglights. Now, frogs actually have an interesting interaction with slime-type mobs. In the same way that slime balls are their favorite food, they will actually attack small slimes when... Whoa! Alright, that frog had a real turn of speed. What was that? That frog was drifting. Anyway, if the sun goes down and the full moon rises here in this swamp biome, we might actually get to see it, but frogs will actually attack and kill baby slimes, meaning that they can actually work as a slime ball factory for you. They won't eat the slime ball items off the ground, so you can actually use frogs to kill the small slimes in a slime farm if you wanted to. But that also leads to some interesting mechanics when they come into contact with small magma cubes, which is obviously a little bit more difficult to do, seeing as magma cubes are not native to the overworld, so getting them here to the overworld to interact with frogs or getting frogs to the nether is really part of the challenge. But if a frog eats a small magma cube, it will produce a block called a Froglight, which is a light source that looks kind of similar to a sea lantern, but in 3 different colors, depending on the color of frog that ate the magma cubes. So we're actually looking to get all 3 colors of frog so that we can farm a new lighting block that's been added to the game. And honestly, I think the frogs are just adorable enough on their own to want to farm and want to see each different type, but what we're really after here is a source of building materials. It sounds like, yep, we have some baby tadpoles once again. The frog spawn that was nearby just hatched and cracked open. So that probably means it's about time, yes, we can breed these frogs again. And we've got 6 around here right now, if I can track all of them down. So hopefully that should mean a couple of breeding pairs here. And now there is plenty of frog spawn down here in the water. So I'm going to make sure that these are protected, and when the moon rises, let's see if we can demonstrate frogs attacking some slimes. Perfect, it looks like a big slime has spawned just over here. So let's see if we can bring that into the vicinity of our frogs. We might actually end up sleeping for the night, so that some of these other mobs don't interfere with this operation. And there we go, we have a few medium-sized slimes which are now following me. I had to fend off a couple of skeletons and that split the slime up a bit. Now the frogs won't care about the medium-sized slimes, and the slimes won't attack the frogs or anything. The frogs are not really seen as predators by the slimes, but once we take out a couple of these and split them up into smaller slimes, once these frogs get hungry, they should start to attack the smaller slimes and leave the slime balls behind. There they go. Yeah, that one just stuck its tongue out and out came a slime ball. And it looks like they have quite an appetite for these little slimes. They will just eat them up nice and quickly. I believe there's a bit of a cooldown when it comes to Froglights though. So maybe Froglights are just like harder for them to pass than slime balls are. They really get a little bit faster running around when the slimes are around though. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool that they actively pursue the little slimes. And hey, we got ourselves some more slime balls out of that. Perfect for breeding up the remainder of our frogs. Now some of the Frogspawn should have hatched around here. Yep, we definitely have one missing from there. So I wonder if there are a couple of tadpoles here in the river now, which honestly might be a little bit more difficult to spot, but no, there are a couple down there. That's perfect. Honestly, I was worried that they were going to be a little difficult to track down once they hatched, but once you're under the water, they're actually pretty easy to spot because they're moving around while the rest of the background is just kind of static. So we actually got 4 tadpoles hatching out of that one, unless one of the other Frogspawn has hatched nearby, and I think the other one was isolated in this little lake over here. Yeah, there's a couple more swimming around in there, so we actually got quite a large amount from that one. And there's 5 swimming around in here, which is perfect. I think maybe 2 of the Frogspawn here have hatched, so oh wow, there's a whole cluster of them right there. That's brilliant. It is of course kind of rare that when a mob breeds in Minecraft, it produces more than one offspring, so this really allows you to get a lot of frogs very, very quickly, and the other Frogspawn just hatched as well. That's great. We're going to be done here in no time. Well, in total there, we have 24 frogs, which is pretty good. We could go for 9 of each different type if we wanted to, and I think that might end up being our goal. But for now, I think we'll probably leave these frogs be, and we've got all of the tadpoles collected up in buckets here, so let's take the shulker box and move to a different biome. Because if the tadpoles grew up into frogs here, they'd just be the same orange variant that we naturally find frogs spawning here in regular swamps. Let's head over to a mangrove swamp and see if we can encounter any of the white frogs that live there. Here we are back at the Mangrove Swamp, and I can already see a little bit of life, but it's a couple of bees flying around, and I didn't mention this in the previous episode, I believe, about mangrove swamps, but you do get bee nests generating in these trees, and I believe it's the case, although I haven't really managed to confirm this myself yet, that if you grow a mangrove propagule into a full mangrove tree near flowers, it can generate a bee nest in the same way that birch trees and oak trees do that if you generate them near flowers. Kind of a chaotic tree to generate a bee nest in though, so I don't think it's the kind of thing that you'd really want to use to farm bee nests, but hey, worth a try. Now we can explore the floor of this mangrove swamp a little bit more thoroughly, and hopefully down here we might be able to encounter frog variant number 2. Yes, here we are! Frog variant number 2, and an incredibly pale variant of frog, actually. These are even whiter than I kind of expected them to be, I guess. And hopefully we'll find another one around here, because it's kind of nice to have more than one on screen at the same time. Yes, there we go. Let's see if we can lure this one up onto the bank. It seems to be having a lovely time in the water so far. And so this is mainly a cosmetic thing. There aren't really any differences in the way the different types of frogs behave or the different biomes make them behave, but of course we can breed these two in much the same way. And unusually for Minecraft, the offspring's color doesn't actually have anything to do with the parents, it is just a matter of which biome they grew up in. But while the orange variant of frog is kind of the temperate biome variant, it's the one that you'll get if you grow tadpoles up in, you know, a regular forest or a swamp or a biome that doesn't really experience any extremes of temperature. These frogs are really warm biome specific. So if you take tadpoles to, let's say, a desert or something like that, or even a jungle, I believe those will always turn into the white variant of frog. And frankly, I'm quite happy that the white variant is here, even though they seem like an odd color choice. I just think that they stand out so much easier against the background of a mangrove swamp than they would if they were the green variant of frog, which is the third one, but the one that doesn't spawn naturally. So where are we going to find those? Well, we're going to have to take our tadpoles to a cold biome. We're going to have to go to a mountain or a meadow or something like that and start a little tadpole hatchery. I should also note that while other passive mobs don't typically spawn a great deal in mangrove swamp biomes, you get a ton of tropical fish just below the surface, and I kind of like that in these waterways to add a little bit of life and color to the place. We also didn't quite get the opportunity to observe that frogs are really good swimmers, and they're very, very graceful in the water. You can see them swimming around, and they seem to enjoy that a lot more than they do on land. But I think that'll be enough from this mangrove swamp. Let's head back to spawn, and let's see if we can find a cold biome to grow some green frogs in. Luckily, around this area near spawn, I have a pretty good mix of biomes. The birch forest here is going to be a temperate biome, so we'll end up with a lot of orange frogs if we grow the tadpoles here. Across the ocean, we have this jungle, which would be perfect for getting hold of the warm variant. But then as far as getting the cold variant goes, I don't believe a meadow biome is cold enough. These are obviously the more elevated type of terrain, but they're not quite cold enough to produce cold biome frogs. In fact, we're going to need to find maybe a mountain biome, like a grove or something like that. Anywhere snowy like that is going to be a safe bet for getting yourself some cold frogs. Likewise, if you go to a snowy tundra, or even like the end is technically a cold biome and water will freeze there if it's not exposed to light. And so the end might not be the worst place to go, considering that if you push the frogs back through the end return portal, they're just going to end up at your world's spawn, which is not too far from where I'm at. But for now, I think we'll play it the intended way, I guess, and we'll head up here to this mountain biome where we had our mountain mining chunk before, and we'll find an area that we can set up a little pool of water to hatch some frogs in. Now, the main thing you need to be concerned about with the colder biomes is the fact that water will freeze in biomes like this if it is not exposed to an adequate amount of light. So you either want to make sure that there are torches all around your spawning pool, just to make sure that ice isn't going to form in here. Alternatively, you can cover the whole thing over, and making sure that there is a block above any water sources in mountain biomes is going to prevent it freezing over and turning to ice. Now, we don't need to do anything too elaborate with this. We can just spam some torches around it and place a bunch of water sources here. And you know what? I think we're only going to release 2 of these for now, because I do think that getting them back from the end might be an easier proposition for us. Although, having consulted the Minecraft wiki on this, apparently the end only counts as a cold biome in Java Edition, at least for the purposes of growing frogs from tadpoles. If you go to the Minecraft wiki and look up the article about frogs, it will actually give you a breakdown biome by biome of what counts as temperate, what counts as cold, and what counts as warm. So it's a really useful resource. I do recommend checking it out. And while these tadpoles are busy growing up, I'm going to craft together some of the slime balls and string that I got from spending the night in that swamp, and we're actually going to craft a couple of leads, because we will need them to bring the frogs back from here once they've fully grown up. I might also see if I can trick one of these goats into ramming me to see if I can get a goat horn, because I'm not sure when we're going to do an episode on goat horns, but they don't have a great deal of uses right now. To get hold of a goat horn, a goat needs to ram a solid block that's part of the mountain environment. So they need to ram a stone block or some copper ore, or I don't know if snow really counts. I think snow might be too soft for them. Oh, the goat's ramming, and there it is! Haha, we managed to catch it out of the air. A goat horn. Let's see what this does when we play it, because there are a few different variants of goat horns, I think some of which are unique to the screaming variants of goats, so it might be a little while until we get one of these, but if I right-click... we got a little, I think that's a saxophone, a MIDI saxophone or something. Super cool, though. I can play this in triumph when these frogs finally grow up. And the goat now only has 1 horn. Oh, that's kind of adorable, actually. I kind of like that. I wonder if the other horn will just break off and then it'll be a hornless goat. This does seem like an ideal time to feed these tadpoles a couple of slime balls just to accelerate the process, actually, because it's taking a while for them to grow up. Just, waiting for something like this to happen in Minecraft is always a little tedious. But yes, it's happening. Our little tadpoles are growing up into beautiful green cold biome frogs. And honestly, I know green is like the stereotypical color for frogs, I suppose, but I like these ones the most. I just love how lush and vibrant that green color is, and I think they look really cool. So while the other one has yet to grow up, we're going to put this one in a boat. I believe we should be able to lead it into a boat like so. Yes, there we go. And that way it won't end up hopping out of the boat. It won't end up hopping sky high and getting lost here in the mountain, because we are going to have to take these back to our spawn point one at a time, more or less, and I think rowing it there in a boat is probably going to be the most effective way of doing that. We could bring it on a lead, but we're about 1,500 blocks out from spawn. It's going to take us a little while to get it back there. So we'll craft up another boat while we're waiting, because this second tadpole does seem to be taking a little while to grow up, and having it in a separate boat is going to be essential to getting them both safely back to spawn. Oh my goodness, that was a trek, and that was just one of them. Yeah, I definitely think breeding them in the end might be the better option, although if you can find a decent place where there are cold, warm, and temperate biomes within a small area. I honestly think it's worth setting up a frog breeding station there. And then if you want to go the Froglight route, getting them into the nether from there seems like the best option. But we're going to tie this frog to the fence post here with the Jeb Sheep and the Mushroom, who is suspiciously red now because I had to replace both of these after a Zoglin killed them. And we're going to go breed up a white warm frog over there in the jungle, and finally a temperate frog here. And that way at least we'll be able to get the advancement for getting all three types of frog on a lead. I have a feeling that the Froglight thing is going to be a bit of a tall order today. But over here in the jungle we can start Tadpole number 2. And after a lot of trekking, gathering, sometimes even frog water skiing, we have our final frogs because, oh, I've had all three of them on a lead. I thought it was going to be having all three of them on the lead at the same time, but no, I guess we have got each frog variant on a lead, kind of separately, although I was hoping to do one with them all together. This might get a little chaotic if I untie all of the leads from this, since there are 6 animals leashed up here, but let's give that a quick try. So we're going to make sure that the Mushroom Cow and the Jeb Sheep don't wander off too much, and then we're going to grab you, and you, if you don't jump away from me. There we go, and now it really feels like we've done the thing. Is that the flag of Italy or Ireland? I'm pretty sure it's one or the other. But we have all 3 variants of frogs, and you know what? It occurred to me that we do have a nether fortress basically just inside my nether portal here at spawn, and magma cubes do occasionally spawn in nether fortresses. So I'm kind of wondering at this point if we can try and get a magma cube through this portal and out here to be consumed by our 3 frogs here, so that we can just check out Froglights on a casual basis, and then maybe we'll come up with a farm design for the Froglights in a future episode. At least that means for now we can keep our tricolor of frogs just kind of leashed up here. We're going to grab this one who has wandered off and make sure that he's involved as well. We got one guy who's just going to stick around in the boat for now, but I'm going to hop through to the nether and see if I can get hold of a magma cube. Now, magma cubes are supposed to be a relatively common spawn in nether fortresses. The main problem really here is that it's in probably the busiest biome in the nether, since we have a crimson forest all around us. So since there are so many hostile mobs here, counting the piglins among those and the hoglins besides, I might have a bit of a hard time finding a magma cube down here. It's not been easy to find a magma cube yet, but I think the main reason for that is because nether fortresses aren't the ideal spawning environment for them. They need a 3x3x3 area in which to spawn, and we've already been blocking off some of those because we want to prevent wither skeletons from chasing after us in the early stages of the game. So I think opening out a couple of these crossroads might be a good way to get magma cubes to spawn in. Well, we have our first magma cube spawn, and it is the smallest possible magma cube, which is good in the sense that this is the type that the frogs will eat and turn into a Froglight. The bad news is that there's only one of them and it's moving incredibly slowly. Naturally, if we want a larger supply of magma cubes than just these tiny ones, we can go to a basalt delta. We can go to the magma cube spawner inside of a treasure room bastion, which might end up being what we do for a farm, because to be honest, clearing out a large area of basalt delta is going to be a bit of a pain, but magma cubes are the only thing that spawn in that biome, so potentially it could be worthwhile. The last place we could go is a more dedicated nether fortress farm, and one that has more ideal spawning conditions than this one here in a crimson forest. But you're definitely going to want to do one of those 3 things, because this process has been incredibly slow. At least once this magma cube makes it through the portal back to spawn, we can at least be guaranteed one of the 3 types of Froglights, and it's kind of a randomizer, I guess, which frog decides to eat it. Okay, the magma cube is through. Let's step on through to spawn and see if it can aggro on us, because we need to get it close to the frogs to begin with, and oh, it's nighttime. Okay, better make sure I sleep first then. But we need to lure this magma cube over here, and it really depends which of the frogs is going to notice it first, I think. So when one of the frogs takes notice of the magma cube, they're going to head over and eat it much the same way they do as the slimes. But oh, yeah, there we go. We got one. Fantastic. Thank you so much, little white frog. We've got ourselves a Pearlescent Froglight. And as you can see, if we do a quick side-by-side comparison, these do look very similar to sea lanterns. They're a nice clean white light source, a little bit less cold, I think, than the sea lanterns are, and obviously the border is a little bit more organic feeling than this, which feels a little bit more framed and organized. But I like these as a texture, and I believe yeah, we can just pick them up like shroom lights, I guess, like kind of any other organic light source where it doesn't need to be mined using a pickaxe, unlike this, which breaks down if we don't mine it with silk touch. So the type of Froglight you get depends on which variety of frog eats the Magma Cube. You get Ochre Froglights from the orange ones and Verdant Froglights from the green ones, and those are kind of tinged with orange and green respectively. The white frog is the one that produces the Pearlescent Froglight, which is obviously mainly white, but has that kind of purple border around the outside. So that's the way in which it deviates from the frog's actual coloring. And I would love to get hold of all 3 Froglights in this episode, so I might dip back into the Nether Fortress and see if we can get ourselves a larger Magma Cube. Well, a second attempt hasn't taken us very long at all. Thank goodness. I literally just got back through to the Nether, and there's a massive Magma Cube right here. I'm hoping this guy can make it all the way to my Nether portal. If not, we might have to break it down into a few smaller, like the medium-sized Magma Cubes, and try and get them through the portal instead. Looks like he might actually be stuck on this corner here, so we're going to have to take these blocks out as well. But then the big test comes when we try and get this guy through the portal and out to the overworld on the other side. It's actually looking like the size of Magma Cube can't make it through the portal. I didn't think they were 3 wide, but I guess they might be. So, let's try and cut him down to size. All right, now we have 2 medium-sized Magma Cubes. Doesn't seem like such a tall order. One of them just went through already. And the other one's through. All right, now let's see if we can get a few more Froglights out of this. Well, took a little bit of damage coming through the portal, and that's entirely why I didn't want to go through when the Zoglin came through here last time. But as you can see, the frogs aren't really taking any interest in these medium-sized Magma Cubes because they're a little bit too big. Once we break them down into smaller Magma Cubes, however, the frogs will be all over this, and we already have a couple of Froglights pop in as we speak. There we go, got a couple of ochre ones, a little bit of magma cream from the medium-sized ones as well, and oh no, it looks like our green friend over here isn't going to get a look in. Let's see if we can lure this Magma Cube over towards the green frog, because we have the Pearlescent Froglights and the ochre ones. We don't have the Verdant one yet. Funnily enough, you can't feed the frogs magma cream. That would be an interesting compromise to this whole situation, but they don't eat it the way they do slime balls. They don't breed with it either. But with this Magma Cube over here, either one of the white frogs is going to get him, or the green one. Oh yes, thank goodness for that. Okay, the green one managed to get there just in time, and we have a Verdant Froglight, so we can look at all 3 varieties of Froglight now, and look at that. The Pearlescent ones are really cool, the ochre ones I think are fantastic, and the green ones are also pretty sweet. The Verdant ones, they look really, really nice. So folks, that is where we're going to wrap things up for this first look at frogs in Minecraft 1.19, the Wild Update. I'm really excited about the frogs. I think they're a really nice feature. They've got so much personality, and they don't quite have the utility of something like bees, which I think set a pretty high bar for being the most productive and interesting mob in the game. But frogs are frankly pretty cool little critters, and we'll be setting up a permanent Froglight farm in the near future, so we can acquire a lot more of these lovely light sources. But that's where we'll leave it for today. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you folks soon. Take care. Bye for now.